Nah, that's too easy.
Here we go.
Now that's more like it. See, I wanted to kick things off introducing you to the Donkey Kong that I know. The one that I met in Donkey Kong 64. He's brash, cocky. He rescued his friends from the clutches of King K. Rool. He freed this guy from imprisonment. He saved DK Island from being exterminated by a giant crocodile beam. But most importantly of all, he's funky. This version of DK marked the 3D coming of age for his entire franchise, and also is not the DK we'll be talking about because we're actually talking about Donkey Kong Country. Yay! You see, I actually wanted to start talking about Donkey Kong 64. It just comes more natural to me speaking on this hot mess than it is on this classic series of 2D platformers. DK64 is the game that got me started on Donkey Kong. It's the game that came through right as I was becoming old enough to be cognizant of how awesome 3D is, but clearly not cognizant enough to recognize the importance of the games that came before it. Because the thing is, Donkey Kong Country really and truly is something special. And it makes me sad that I never got a chance to experience DKC 1 or 2 the same way the kids a few years older than me got to. Donkey Kong Country 3 to me feels like a different beast, so I actually won't be going into this one in this particular video. But the first two, man, these games were events back then. I wish I had been that kid that sat down with his friend on his SNES just taking turns trying to make it through Minecart Carnage, or who would run to this corner store just so he could pick up a strategy guide for these games. But sadly, I was just a little baby then. It was only until much later in life, after I had already mowed through every Mario and Sonic game, after I had finally grown some hair on my chest that I got to... would you get out of here? This isn't about you. It was only until later in life that I finally got to experience the original Donkey Kong Country. Yes, for the first time, I finally got to sit down and try this game. And you want to know what I initially thought about it? Oh man, this game is jank! Are you kidding me with this crap? The sheer amount of precision it takes sometimes to clear certain gaps, the fact that the animal buddies feel like they actually make the game harder if you don't know what you're doing, enemies teleporting back to their original starting spots if you move far enough away from them, flying objects surprising you with a hit from off-screen, Minecart Carnage, and the fact that it even exists. This game pushes every one of my buttons, all through what I perceive to be cases of archaic game design. Now granted, much of these issues can be mitigated by learning a little get-goodology, but that doesn't change the fact that these issues shouldn't even be here in the first place. And hey, I get it, this game is damn old, so problems like this were bound to exist. Just like they exist in other classic titles from this era, but you know what? I don't care. This game still pisses me off with how cheap and unforgiving it is, and believe me when I tell you this, you don't want to know how many times I shouted at my TV like it was my own mother while dying in this game. Just kidding about that last part. The platformers of this era were known for their ruthless level designs, so dying over and over again until a few blood vessels popped in your brain and you went and chucked the controller at your grandma was definitely considered normal in games of this time. But being a gamer in 2022, I am a little less tolerant of BS like this, especially since I personally have no childhood attachments to this series, so it's not like there's some nostalgic connection I have to these games that can come and cloud my vision from all of the game's imperfect, jagged edges. And while I'd like to believe Donkey Kong Country was merely the victim of being the first game in its own series, and that Donkey Kong Country 2 was to be the one to mature past many of the first game's issues and realize its own potential further, DKC 2 does indeed mature itself into a greater game, but with its notable maturity and expansion of complexity within its levels, it's more or less just leaving itself open for more opportunities of bullshit to happen. For one thing, you have this bird here, right? This freaking bird. You just want to take him and... Squawks, that's his name. He flies you through a few of these levels and you know, he just controls like jank. His movements are way too sensitive, and he doesn't stop right away whenever you take your thumb off the stick. He just keeps going, almost like he's doing it on purpose and he just wants to fly you into stuff because he gets off on seeing you fail over and over again. I hate him. I hate everything about him. And if you like him at all, then I hate you too. Like I said, DKC2 gets way more dynamic, shall we say, with its gameplay. And this invariably leads to more old-fashioned properties of game design to rear their ugly heads. Haunted Hall was excruciating in this regard, specifically because it felt like no matter how well I timed my jump across certain gaps, it felt like it was never enough. It wasn't until like my 50th try that I figured out you could jump in your minecart while suspended in mid-air, which really hurt my soul to find this out when I did, as it became quite clear to me at this point that this game was quite happy with omitting important aspects of the game's rules from me and leaving me to learn them for myself on accident after several minutes of tedious trial and error. Yeesh. Now I know why everybody loved instruction booklets back in the day. Because yes, trial and error was exactly what these games banked on to ramp up your playtime. But it wasn't just for that reason alone. Trial and error, admittedly, is what it takes to become good at something. And eventually through this method, you can actually get really good at Donkey Kong Country. So much so that you can actually turn this into a Sonic game with how fluidly you speed through these levels. And if you weren't aware at this point, I sure do likes me some Sonic. So by that logic, I do actually enjoy playing Donkey Kong Country. And any potential Dane Bramage I've suffered from dying so many times due to something that wasn't my fault, it was all worth it in the end, because despite everything, Donkey Kong Country is still my favorite way to experience 2D platforming. The first game set the groundwork for some inventive level design. Its worlds understood immersion before immersion even knew its own last name. And it's got character. No, not just the actual characters themselves, like DK or Diddy, but the other kind of character, you know, like broadly speaking, conceptually. Okay, I need to go lie down. I also feel like the ambience of this game is unlike anything experienced before in gaming. There's just such a unique vibe to this jungle setting, almost peaceful despite the fact there's Kremlings everywhere, and these underwater levels put you at ease with their classic music combined with the darker color palette. When I'm playing this game, I sometimes feel like I'm sitting in my room with purple LED lights everywhere, set to a light dimmer, and a sound machine playing in the background. You know what I'm talking about. It's just so calm and soothing, almost tranquil, zen, and I'm completely drawn to how haunting that can feel. This game basically just hits different. And you will not find these same soothing vibes in DKC2. What you will find instead is the sweet smell of adventure. This game feels more epic than the previous installment, and for good reason, because this game is an adventure. It feels like Diddy is coming of age as he traverses Crocodile Isle. You can't help but get excited as you advance closer and closer to King K. Rool's lair, because the difficulty curve here is almost perfect. I love it when games balance out the difficulty curve the right way, because, let's be real, that almost never happens. And here's the thing. I know I said previously that these games love to just punish you for every little mistake you make. And I also know I said there are little nooks of obsolete bullshit that screw you throughout these games. If you are able to pull up your socks and endure through the first hour or so of that other stuff, you will get good, no, really good at these games. And you will be able to fly through these levels, and you will discover why these games are so great, despite all of their flaws. These games originated the perfect formula for 2D platforming, and the only thing that may even slightly hold them back from this is their age. But hey, if I'm not mistaken, we already have a solution to this age problem. Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. This right here is what happens when you modernize a classic game. You get nearly all of those awesome things from before. Precision platforming, mechanically smooth level design, awe-inspiring set pieces, lovable characters, the whole works. Except this time, you get something else to round all that out. Balance. balance is probably the biggest contribution that modern game design has brought to all of the remakes we know today. It did it in New Super Mario Bros., it did it in Sonic Mania, and now it's doing it here in Donkey Kong Country. Basically, this game made the idea of a cheap death nearly an afterthought. Anytime I found myself dying in this game, it was usually because of a mistake I made and not because of some bootleg game design that screwed me over. So now anytime I die in this game, I won't be able to blame it on my mom or my grandma. The only person I'll have to blame is myself? Actually, screw everything I said. This game sucks. Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze is essentially what the classics wanted to be, but weren't able to become due to game design still being in such a young and immature stage back in the 90s, thereby leading to the core of each game's gameplay feeling gritty, fragile, and downright cheap. But with Tropical Freeze, pretty much all the pieces of the puzzle fit together here. At times, these games run almost too perfectly, and the game lends itself almost too much to a satisfying gaming experience. You kinda wanna go back to the old DKCs and experience some of that 16-bit jank. You know, just really get some of that dirt under your fingernails and put some hair on your chest. I will say that the classics have the edge in that regard. They are indeed a masochist's wet dream. Or maybe I'm just bad at video games. You know what? That's probably it. I should probably just stop complaining and go get good at DKC. In the meantime, I still believe all the negatives I listed about this series ring true. This series is flawed, just like any other 16-bit era game, or any era for that matter. But that doesn't mean that I can't find enjoyment in them. I do have a love-hate relationship with Donkey Kong Country. Sometimes these games piss me off, and sometimes they make me proud to be a gamer. I will continue to forge ahead through the good and the bad, and enjoy the ride for what it is, because Donkey Kong Country, and every character, every level, every lame boss fight, and every dick move this game throws my way, will be completely worth it. Except him. Fuck this guy.